Welcome to episode 2 of From Uncertainty to Opportunity Resilient by Design, a 3 episode special edition podcast. My name is Lana Getz, and I will be your host for this series. In today's episode, we explore how European businesses can proactively build agility and foresight into their logistics operations. I am joined today by Zara Zeng, the Global Head of Business Resilience and Consulting at Maersk, who is going to help us understand the principles that help organizations weather disruptions and emerge stronger. Hi, Zara, and welcome.
Hi, Lena. Hello, everyone. So nice to be here. My name is Zara Chen, responsible for business resilience and consulting at Maersk, and also overseeing the supply chain risk and the resilience solutions. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Zara. So we've heard the phrase supply chain resilience probably more times than we can count. And I'm curious, why do we put an emphasis on resilience today? And why do we say phrases like supply chain resilience is a lifeline for supply chains?
Yeah, well, that's I think questions many business, supply chain leaders will ask as well. Why suddenly supply chain resilience becomes a buzzword and getting so popular? Actually, what happens and after especially after the COVID is we are seeing increasing frequency of the disruptions that is starting to hitting the supply chain and also the logistic activities. And also, there's an increasing of the complexity of these disruptions. So if you think about the strike that are happening, hitting the port, actually it's no longer just a strike, but also could be complicated by the geopolitical situations and then later by the congestions happening at the port. So then it will give a huge impact in the supply chain, even can be traced back to the raw material supply. So this is a complexity, is makes the supply chain disruptions more difficult to predict and also more difficult to handle. So that's also why the business now is actually see, okay, for such situations, what exactly we can do to mitigate the impact and also to help us better prepare for these kind of unexpected events. I think actually I would like to use the word that the World Economic Forums and they did a report in 2023, actually using the words to describe such kind of disruptions. They call it polycrisis. So this is also to indicate that the complexity, the interconnectedness of these disruptions, the nature of these disruptions actually happens in the world. So this is also, I think, the best word to describe that what's the kind of situations many of our business leaders, supply chain leaders are dealing with.
Thank you, Zara. And in the previous episode, we spoke with Henrik, and we spoke about visibility and its role in driving resilience. So, what are some of the other trends or other developments that are empowering companies in navigating complexity, and what is making them really drive this need for resilience?
Well, I think visibility is, of course, the foundations, and also I would say once the critical things that I would suggest that the supply chain leader and also the business leaders need to think about and need to fix first, because visibility is enable you to see what is coming to you, and also to help you understand what's the exposures to your shipment to your supply chain. So it's a kind of a foundations for everything when you manage these disruptions. On top of that, you can actually consider about, okay, on top of the decent visibility of the shipments of your supply chain, whether you have the visibility of also the disruptions of the risk as well, whether you have the channels to ensure you that you can receive these kind of disruptions alert in a timely manner, and also when the disruptions happens, whether you get enough information to help you with the actions. So these are kind of a capability. It's super important to help you prepare for that disruptions and also to help you quickly respond to this disruption. And then the third things also for the long-term strategy, supply chain strategies and preparations, you can actually think about where you have the dependency and the vulnerabilities in your supply chain. Do you have any bottlenecks in your entire supply chain? Do you have any dependency on one single carriers or one single suppliers or even one single countries? That could be something that you can consider and also to think about in case there's any disruption hitting these single supply, single sources, what alternative that you can have and to ensure that you have the cargo flows are still moving and also the stuff, the products are delivered to your customers. So this is actually help you to prepare for what's going to hit you in the next few years. And also, after you knowing the dependency, the choke point, these vulnerability you have in your supply chain, then the next step is about what options you have. Whether you have the alternative plans or contingency plans in place, and then this will enable you to quickly respond, adjust it to the disruptions, adjust it to the impact. Think about in case there's a port getting the strike or being hit by the inclement weathers, or even that could be some geopolitical things and hitting the ports, hitting the country. Then what options you have to keep the cargo flow? So this is kind of a thing and is important and crucial, especially in nowadays business environment. Like what I mentioned earlier, the business environment nowadays is getting more complex because of this increasing frequency of the disruption, and also because of this interconnectedness of the disruptions. So I will also advise the business to think about to have your contingency planning alternative route in place before these disruptions really hit you.
Thank you, Zara. And you said that it's important to also know what impact a disruption is going to have on your supply chain. And in one of our earlier conversations, you also said something along the lines of not every disruption is your disruption, which I think illustrates this really well. And maybe can you give us an example of where you've seen the right supply chain design help companies overcome a disruption that was particularly relevant for them? And can you tell us more about how Maersk can play a role in doing this for our customers? So letting them know which disruption is their disruption.
Yeah, super. So actually, you did remind me that the scenarios I mentioned that, right? The perfect examples, if and also I would love to remind the audience here to think about what happens in early this year about these wildfires hitting the Californias. There's tons of media coverage reporting, wow, there's wildfires and hitting the Californias and also create a lot of noise and in the market, right? But how much it can actually impact your supply chain. What I want to point out here is actually from the medias, and there's always their own interest to attract, and also they will be very selective in the information they share with the audience. So from the supply chain leaders and also the business leaders, you have to be smart to understand that what disruptions is worth for you to spend the time on, and also why. Because this is actually requires you first to understand what's happened there, and also to me, to my business, to my supply chain, how many exposures to that. So if you don't have any cargoes in California in that particular region, why I have to care about these cases, right? So that's why I have that words, and not all the disruptions, it's your disruption. Important is to understand what is relevant to you, because there's so many noise in the market, in the internet. But again, you really need to spend your time smartly to on the ones that really matters to you. And also about from the Maersk side, what exactly we can help you. I'm actually quite happy to share that early this week we just also launched a new products, a new demo of the products Maersk Risk Management. This is actually a solution to help customers to have the real-time visibility of a global disruption and mapping with your actual shipments. That's exactly what I meant earlier, right? So to help you to understand what's exposure to the risk. If there's no exposure, it's not worth it for you to spend a time on. But if you have 1,000 shipments exposed to that specific risk, yes, definitely you need to do something with that. So this is actually how we can help the customers to see the relevance. And also for Maersk Risk Management tools, the good things is actually to address the inside part. like what I mentioned, not all the risk is relevant to you, and also what exactly it means to you, right? So, for example, you probably also see the news from the internet or receive the notifications from your 2PO or 3PO logistics service provider tell you, hey, next week there will be a strike and going to hit the port. But so what? So what I'm going to do with that, how I can mitigate the impact, right? So actually, we do see that the customers and actually lack of this clarity in the information they receive now, no matter from the internet or maybe from their existing channels, from the business partners. So this is also an issue that we want to use the Maersk risk management tools to help you to address. Actually, the insight we generated and also shared with the users is actually generated by the dedicated risk expert team. They sourcing the information internally and also externally with some risk information providers. And then this team will verify the impact and also the information to consolidate and also make it the insight to help a customer drive the actions. So it's no longer just say, hey, next week it will be a strike. Actually, we are telling customers, okay, based on our historical data about these countries and also the past events, similar events, that for this post strike, we do see very likely the government will intervene at the last minute. So we see that the chances for the long-term impact by these disruptions might be averted because of that.
Thank you, Zara. Conversations with you are always super insightful. And thanks also to everyone for tuning in. As we heard, resilience is all about having the strategic foresight and anticipating what comes next. So join us, please, for the third and final episode of the series, where we speak to Jordi Avellaneda, Regional Head of Implementation, about where supply chains are headed next. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.